Welcome to this episode of Founders Without Filters, where we receive one of the most successful entrepreneurs. The very essence of FWF is about not knowing how to make millions or how to reach the mountain, but how you start with your first client as a founder, how you get your first investor, how you bring your first million. Today, I'm welcoming some of the most incredible entrepreneurs I know. They are friends and they are the power couple, the co-founders of Defense. Defense raised recently $3.5 million in a seed round after raising $1 million in a pre-seed round, and they are revolutionizing the way you secure your crypto assets by basically putting them on the cloud as opposed to putting them in a cold wallet that you might lose. More importantly, what I want to discover is how you run a startup, how you build a startup when you are a couple, when you have kids, and Clarice just gave birth to an amazing kid just like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Hermes, right?
Hermes, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hermes is well, it was only 2 weeks ago already.
And you're here for this interview with us. So thank you a lot for coming. Chris, we're friends for some time. So what I want to know, guys, is how did this whole decision of becoming an entrepreneur start? I know that, Chris, you did it right after school. Clarice, you had a story. You're going to tell us a little bit more about it in investment banking and almost in cinema. So let's go. Let's start with you, Chris. So how did it start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for inviting us. I'm very happy to be here. It all started, where are we now? Yeah, 11 years ago. I was doing what we call in France classe préparatoire de grandes écoles, meaning like preparatory classes for big schools, great schools in France, like the Ivy League basically. And it took me 6 months to realize that I was not learning stuff, but more preparing a diploma. And they were like preparing us to get the diploma. So the kind of off-the-grid stuff I wanted to do were not possible. So after 6 months, I went out and went to philosophy university, 6 months, and in parallel of all this, I was building a bar. But a kind of a specific bar, more in the vein of what we call in France social economy. So it was a bar that did only organic food, helped out the poor, like homeless people, gave them free coffee. We gave out books, etc. So there was this whole alternative spirit going on within that bar, and it became an institution in a small city called La Rochelle on the west coast in France. We started between 2010 and 2012. So in parallel of my studies, that project just went on and grow big to the point that I decided to drop school. So I'm a dropout, not from Stanford, but from a small philosophy university in Bordeaux. And yeah, with my two friends, we went on. It became a success in that city, more than 250 concerts a year, etc., etc. There was some clash with co-founders. We can come back to that topic later, but that made me want to leave the project. I went on and I was writing a book at the time, so like that was my new project. I wanted to finish a novel, so I went back to Sweden, which is I'm French but also Swedish. It's my other country. After a year, I figured out through a weird way, we can come back to that later as well, that basically there was potentially an idea to, in 2014, to suggest an alternative to LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I fell in love with the problem of professional networking and so on and so forth. So I started a company that raised a lot of money, 1 million, and we hired a lot, but it had no product market fit, and there was a lot of problems. 3 years later, I decided to re-attack the same problem of professional networking, but with another team, another approach. It was more successful, but it didn't generate money because social apps famously don't generate money until they do. So yeah, I was tired at the time, having spent now 5-6 years on social apps, consumer-facing products that were freemium, and so then.
Then it happened.
Then we clicked. She was on her thing,
And just to explore something, so you warmed up your entrepreneurial instincts with this bar, and then you dropped out. You're like, okay, it's getting serious. I want to pursue my dreams. But what made you continue? Because like you had this co-founder clash. What did you say to yourself? What triggered this? Oh, I'm gonna be resilient and I'm gonna keep building companies as opposed to finding a job.
That's there's a short answer and there's a long answer to that, you know.
Let's go with the short.
Yeah, maybe two main things. One, it's like by default, I don't see myself doing something else. Meaning that if there's a positive way of saying it and there's negative. The negative way of saying it is that all in all, in the absolute, I don't see anything else that satisfies me today than building companies and creating stuff. So if I would imagine myself, my life, my career into like as an employee, I could for some time, but I definitely see the limits. I see that my boss is going to piss me off, that there's going to be limits that will frustrate me, that I'm going to try to improve stuff within that company, within that organization, and that I will get basically boxed in, and that's that is basically. I could also go and walk around the world unemployed and just contemplate the world, but that's for later, right?
So if we summarize, it's more inherent to your character, to your personality, and you're like, okay, I don't want to fight it, so I'm just gonna build with a sense of freedom. So like. Can we say like you're very attached to the freedom of the ideas and execution?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a fundamental frustration, right? It's like it's an organic frustration with existence itself. Like there's the state of affairs, there is like what is, and then there is what could be. Yeah. And I'm more someone who I'm too curious and I'm too hungry for what could be. So I'm not going to stay in what is.
I see. Interesting. So now moving on to you, Clarisse, you had a different story. Yeah. So I know it started with working hard to get to like top schools and then banking, but in the middle there is a cinema episode. So tell us more about it.
Basically, I didn't drop out. We had the same start, but I didn't drop out. I have a completely opposite background in the beginning because I chose the institutional path, right? So. Sciences Po. I did. I love studying. Really loved it. So I did like several masters, and I.
Hello, she's saying I'm not liking studying.
No, I think you like learning. You didn't like the way you didn't like learning at school, basically. And I was totally fit for that. So I enjoyed it a lot, but was always passionate about movie, cinema, theater. I've been, taking theater lessons for years. And so when I had a chance at Sciences Po to do an exchange program with NYU, actually, I arrived at NYU and I said, all right, I'm not going to study literature or economics because that's boring, right? And have 6 months in front of me in the best cinema school in the US. So I basically knocked on all the doors on the cinema school, and I managed to spend a bit of time in the Master of Fine Arts in Filmmaking. I did a short film. There I applied for the MFA, and for a second I thought that I was going to change totally path and become the director I wanted to become. But I didn't get into the school, not at the finish line, got selected, but at the finish line didn't get for the full program. And there I really thought a lot, and I think there was a bit of social pressure where I thought, all right, you have a diploma that you've invested a lot of years in, right? And so if you don't start working right now, then it's going to lose all its value. Whereas you can always go back to movie and you can always go back to directing. And
so at that time you were like, I need to be pragmatic.
Exactly. We talked together about the safety net. At that time I was like, it's time to build your safety net. Yeah. Build a safety net, then do whatever you want to do. But first start with building the safety net. And I guess I don't know if it's just so it's personality, it's also potentially gender, women versus men, being a bit more risk adverse. It's also about the education I received.
Careful.
It's also about the education I received, where to me, imagining having a family and not being able to give what I had received was difficult. So anyway, so I chose to go through the banking world a bit. So before I entered Sciences Po, if you had told me I was going to work in a bank, I would say never, ever. I didn't even know what bank were doing, besides lending money. And I was told at some point that doing a summer internship in an investment bank was pretty much doing again the in France, you have the voie royale scientifique in high school. If you elect science, then it opens all the doors. That was a bit the same thing. You could do whatever you want after that. So I did my summer internship at Goldman Sachs in equity research. And I thought, oh, first of all, it pays well. Second of all, there are bright people because there are bright people around. And actually, in a bank, you do a lot of things, right? There's so many different roles you can do. And so I was like, all right, I can explore more. I know equity research was not totally fit for me because it was a bit too much of a lonely work. And then I went to wealth management, and then I went to being the chief of staff for a CEO of a French investment bank, then moved on to structuring export finance deal, then moved on to having my own coverage, my own corporate clients. And I changed, I changed a lot. Every 2 years, I would get bored, so I would try to do something else. Something that has been, just to go back to how I decided to start a company, something that has been quite true all along this path is that, and this is where I think there's still something where we have a common, there's a common characteristic here, is that I hated the way things were done, and I tried to change them all the time. But it didn't reward me anything. Yeah. And so it got frustrating, a bit more frustrating. And at the end, I think the last event that was frustrating to me was that I started an hydrogen initiative, so a coverage around hydrogen. We're one of the first banks globally to start that, because I say, okay, there's a case for it. I'm starting seeing all the clients that are moving to this field. Let's do something about it. Got approved by the CEO of the bank. The initiative was launched, and I was never offered to take the head of that initiative. It had to be an older white man.
Okay, I see. So if we summarize, it's like, okay, I worked so hard to get those degrees. These schools are the best like starters to have a safety net.
Yeah.
I'm going to leverage on that. And then you're like, okay, every 2 years I change the department, I change even the job, I change the sector. You try to do this kind of intra entrepreneurship within the group. But year after year, you started to accumulate some frustration around not being able to change things from inside. We know corporate world, it's very, very political, and especially in the banks and so on. Now I'm interested into the fact that it's also within the bank that you started to explore the ground of what would be your next entrepreneurial ground.
Absolutely.
So tell us more about the transition.
Yeah. I think there was two steps. The first step was actually that I started working on a project on my own in 2016. That was the idea was to create a food coin. I started that with a friend. So this is really when I started being interested in blockchain, starting reading white paper of certain blockchain that was getting out, and starting interested in the subject. And so right after this hydrogen episode happened, the bank offered me to go work as a consultant for 2 months in a startup that was incubated by the bank. I think they thought that would be a way to reward her somehow. And I chose a blockchain startup because I had been so interested by this subject that I thought, all right, I want to dive down, and what's better than just know from the inside, right? And so I spent 2 months actually with a company that was a blockchain name service on Cosmos. IOV, they changed their name on Starname, and at that time they were finishing their private ICO, and I did help them finish it. And so every time I would go and see, an institutional investor, a small family office, or a small asset manager to pitch them the project, they would be completely excited about it. But when I would pitch the closing of the project, meaning how their investment would materialize, meaning they would have what we call a private key, this password on blockchain that that if you lose it, you lose everything, right? When I would talk about that, basically people would have fear in their eyes and they would tell me, okay, how do we secure that? And so I would tell them, buy a nano ledger, talk about the existing solution that was out there. And they always had the same reaction, which was, okay, we don't have the compliance internally to just give a device to one of our traders. What if he lives with it? And how do I track it? And so what are the solutions out there that can help us do that? And so I started diving into the subject. And at the time in 2019, everything was either extremely expensive, not flexible enough, not fit for the institutional usage. And I thought, well, this is incredible. I was completely convinced that blockchain, that we were heading to blockchain mass adoption. But what I realized in 2019 is that we didn't have the tools to go there. And that was one of the most basic tools. How do you secure your crypto, and how do you do it at scale? How do you create that builder's economy for crypto, right?
So going to summarize this aspect, then moving to Chris, who was working on his side, because there is a moment where you had a jump into the pool. So just to make it simple for some entrepreneurs that not necessarily, I would say, crypto enthusiasts. So at that time, you can secure your assets in a cold wallet.
Yeah.
It's a literally physical hardware. And when you go talk with institutionals or big companies that sometimes have to syndicate around the deal and send big amounts of money, the idea of knowing that their money is secured in a hardware that can disappear because it can have a technical failure as much as it can just get destroyed or stolen, this was a big no. And you were like, oh, crypto, blockchain, not gonna disappear.
It's here to stay.
It's going to potentially be the next revolution. So if I manage to solve this issue of creating trust, because the money is about trust, right? And this trust is going to be secured in a way that these big players will accept doing bigger deals and like increasing the number of transactions and being more reinsured, then there is something. This is where I switch to Chris. Chris, at that time, if we just like locate the year, so what year was that? 2000 and...
So it was the end of 2019. I resigned. So yeah, I came up with the idea of defense in September 2019.
Okay, and what were you doing, Chris, a year before that? And at that moment, you were on Purple?
Well, yeah, I was working on Purple, so...
Networking app.
Yeah. So it's a networking app. Yes, we kind of went through a couple of ideas with my former CTO Thibaut in Paris at Station F, and it looked like some kind of snap map for professionals. Then it pivoted into some kind of TikTok for professionals with short videos, and yeah, we were super focused on the B2C. We absolutely wanted to do a social app. By the way, Clap, CLAAP, a year later does the same thing but for B2B and raises 2 million, you know?
Okay.
So like I'm like
So you're like, oh, I didn't bet on the right horse.
Yeah. And then my CTO, kudos to him, he was like, we should do B2B. So but so asynchronous videos, I talked to VCs in the Hey Unshackled Ventures, a couple of VCs in the Bay Area, and they were like, asynchronous videos for meetings, like what the hell, that's never gonna fly. COVID happens, okay, now I see, so it was fun too. That was fun, but at the same time, again, like I told you, we were not making money. I had nice users on the app. I had the founders of Instacart. I had a lot of VCs here in France, in SF, in London.
You had Walid, no?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you were the beta testers.
So that's how we met, right? So like, yeah, a bunch of things, and well, when she was exploring blockchain security issues in September 2019, October 2019, and I was working on that on my thing. She was bringing home knowledge and discussions, right? So I had an ear that was like dragging, right, and I was listening to everything, and at the same time, if I may, I was giving her advice. So she was like, she had a co-founder. I was like, he's not good. He's not startup material. Kick him out. So we had those discussions right now. I know nothing about cybersecurity, finance, crypto at that time. And so basically at some point in May 2020, I was like to my CTO, I was like, man, bro, I'm broke. I have no money. I've been going on, knocking my head bloody on the idea that I could disrupt LinkedIn and do something interesting. We're not going anywhere because it's interesting, but there's at least 6 months, one year of iteration before we at least do something. Have no money. I need to be a realist. I need to get a job. At the same time, I'm like, she has an idea in cybersecurity and crypto, which is like radically the opposite.
Yeah,
of
different.
what I'm doing.
You're like, I want to see people around, have drinks and network. No, it's like deep tech.
Exactly.
B2B
and
deep
in
tech.
finance and in security and in emerging markets, so it's like it's really the opposite. Does it make it harder? I would say it was funny because it was for me where I was a walk in the park. Like to sell that, I looked at the project, right, and I saw how to improve it. But I was like, we can raise with this very easily. That was my first idea, and I wasn't like, because I had gotten bitch slapped by every investor for years and years on social apps, right? So we were basically in that moment where we looked ourselves in the eyes, and bingo, it was like she had the industry expertise, I had the entrepreneurial skills, and we went on. But to just come back to one thing, it's not like you discover the problem, and then you say, oh, if I solve it, it's gonna be a miracle. What happens is that she get exposed.
Yeah.
But that's the merit of like searching and exploring and being curious about a problem. In Berlin, I'll let you talk about the story.
Yeah. Because I was a bit obsessed with the fact that there was no solution, so I was kind of, as I told you, looking a bit everywhere. And I had the opportunity to spend a week at the Berlin Blockchain Week in the summer 2019, and I met with the founder and CEO of Zengo. And Zengo is a B2C wallet that is secured by the technology that we're using, meaning multi-party computation and threshold signature scheme. So advanced cryptography to actually secure sort of cloud natively the private key. And so he told me all about that technology. And to me, what was amazing is that for the first time, I saw an opportunity to not only build a solution that would be cloud-based, and to me, that was kind of the first step that we need to focus on, but also distributed, because for the first time, you could envision a way to actually safekeep the key share or the private key in key shares, and meaning that you make the private key disappear. And so you don't no longer just store a private key in one single place, so you completely eliminate the single point of failure and you distribute the risk. You diversify the risk, you distribute the risk. And I thought this was completely aligned with the spirit of blockchain to start with, and also that was and you
even removed the risk.
You remove the risk.
Plus, you don't that much centralize, so you keep it kind of decentralized. Yeah. It's not like one person holds everything. Yeah.
And actually, I told at the time Uriel, because we wrote an article, sent it to him, and he was really focused on his B2C wallet. And to me, yes, there had to be not only a better, I don't know if it's better, in our view it's but a better implementation, because you distribute the risk and you split the private key.
No, it's also like, it's not only a B2C app, right?
And last, exactly, infrastructure solution. Actually, why would you do another wallet? There's hundreds of wallets out there. What's missing is a way to secure those wallets. It's an infrastructural solution.
But yeah, so maybe why I'm like, because I was thinking about, the truth is you don't, I'm fed with the startup literature, right? And so like there are many ways to create startups, but one of them is to leverage new technologies that create new situations. They need to be mature enough. The market needs to be ready to adopt them. So you need to have the experience or the sensibility to kind of feel the right timing for things. But in this case, it is a new technology that is mature enough, and that was creating a new situation for the market, a new situation for the industry players. And so she stumbled on that, right?
Yeah.
It was an accident. It was an accident due to the merit of the research and the exploration and the like. I need to find some solution for my customers that are saying like the investors are saying like I'm not going to put my stuff in an MP3 music player. Basically that's it, right? So yeah, that's it's entrepreneurship. We're gold diggers, right? We're looking for gold, and sometimes there are accidents.
Absolutely.
Like, you just need to seize the opportunity.
And what's really interesting is I see two things, right? One, none of you has a technical background.
No.
That's very important to say. I mean, like they don't have any technical background, right? So no engineering, no. I personally was discouraged in the past to dig into deep tech subjects because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna understand. But what I see is, and that will be like my question is, to what extent you were capable to push the research in something that is hard to understand.
Yeah.
You know, where you always driven by the usage, the bottom line solution it brings, and you will be like, you know, I'll figure out, I'll find someone who will understand it. So I'm just like asking you this question on behalf of many entrepreneurs that is like maybe they have a cousin, a friend, you know, someone within the close circle that is like a techie, like technologist, let's call it so, and they were like, how can I do with them something? How can I leverage on that?
So maybe I don't know if we have the same view on the topic, but I think so. I'm a bit geeky in the sense that I do like understanding. Sorry, art problems or dive into subjects that are technical. And so, for instance, when I first discovered this technology, I started watching video about cryptography and starting learning what was asymmetrical cryptography, what was the private key, what was the public key, how it was derived, what was the fundamental of all that, right? And to me, it was it was very enjoyable. So I know that I would never become that person, you know, that technical person, but I would know enough that I could basically
I know what has to happen,
exactly
not what to do.
Exactly.
I mean, then like how to do, sorry.
Yeah. And then after you need to surround yourself with the people who know. So then when you, especially if you're lucky enough to have someone in your family or in your friends that has that background, it's amazing. But yes, then after we had to find a co-founder that could bring that expertise in. But I started first by really, really understanding what I could understand, stop where I could not. But to me, yeah, this was not something that was scaring me. I did take a lot of pleasure.
And another aspect that is important to pinpoint is you didn't invent from scratch technology. Technology is there. You found the usage for the technology. Exactly. And startups is not just about inventing from scratch.
Yeah.
It's there. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Is it mature enough, as you just said? Is the market ready to adopt it? Take a bit of risk and find the right team around it. And I would love to have your point of view, Chris. So you were in the networking social apps. You were not at all in a deep tech. So you understood the problem. You understood the solution. How did you take a grasp of the opportunity from a startup perspective by saying, okay, we don't have a CTO, we don't have a technologist in our team, we're just two business people, and we're gonna start our early days of the next big thing, building a deep tech. So how was it? What was your fear? What was the way you tackled this?
I might miss out a detail or two, but you can maybe complete. I think one of the first things was to, of course, like we needed the money to hire, right? So we need to raise money, and business angels. You start with business angels because unless you are a serial founder and you know VCs are like you start with business angels. So we need to create an equity story. We need to surround ourselves with market data, stuff that has happened previously prior to us, and just show, put the spotlight on the fact that there's an emerging market, there's a big hole in the market, a pain point around security. And security, even though it's complex, it's very easy, right? Threat, something to steal, threat, security, you can't steal it anymore. So it's kind of dumb. It's one of those things that you can go deep inside the technology, and it's immensely complex to some extent. But the kind of high level, it's easy to swallow and digest what you're doing when you're securing something. So we had to show the value, the market. We had to show the benefits of multi-party computation, MPC, and the cryptography that we could leverage, etc. Once that was done in the proper way, and so at the time in 2020, what was it?
2020, no, 2020.
Yeah, was it 2020? Pitch.com, for instance, was in beta, right? So you couldn't access it. I had access to it, so I was using Pitch, and now everyone uses Pitch. But at that time, no one was using Pitch, not much. And so I was like, showing the deck to a couple of VCs, and they're like, "Oh, this is the most beautiful deck I've ever seen." But it was easy because it was Pitch. Again, leverage technology, leverage the things that exist out there to increase speed. So that was one thing. That was where I had my strength. Where I was weak and where I needed to ramp up, because crypto is finance. It's the same. Sure, it's new concepts, new realities, etc. But fundamentally, you see a lot of things that are the same. So where I needed to understand, and where I was like I had a headache, right? Like, what the fuck? Like, market makers, liquidity providers, banks,
liquidity
OCC,
pools, custodian.
Yeah, like, oh, there's a custody bank and an investment bank. So I need to make sense of all those players in the galaxy, and we spent a lot of times. And I was like, just Clarice, if you want me to join you, and I cannot be in the blind spot. I need to understand. So I was like, okay, so that person sends money to that actor. Why? Because that's you need, like, regulation requires this, etc. Okay, and they do this for that. Why? And by asking just why for several days, after a while, we were like sketching things, and she was basically giving me a course that I could have like spent a year in university to get.
No.
But I got a speed track course.
You were lucky, man.
And like how finance works, But I needed to get that knowledge, and
I think it's important to pinpoint, I think, like 3 lessons here are very important. One is, do your job well, wherever you do. Like, you are defending a startup at the end of the day. You're trying to help them get investors. And by doing so, you went to the roots of the problem and to understanding. And this is where you found the opportunity by leveraging on the technology. Lesson 2 is, like, you were on your thing, but you were not like just completely blinded. You started to let yourself warmed up.
Exactly.
And upskill. And don't be afraid, because I'm saying this to the entrepreneurs, because you can build anything. You just have to understand the basics. Where's the pain? When pain meets a solution, there is a market, there is a startup. And the third one, and I think this is like my transition, is we still didn't we still haven't found the secret behind the mystery of what made you move. I know that you were coming back from work at home, and you were working on your startup, and I know from Chris that the fact that you're surrounding yourself, right, with a partner in life that is working on his project kind of pushed you a bit into jumping into the pool, right?
For sure.
You can talk about this a little bit more.
For sure. So for the first 3 years of our relationship, I watched Chris being 100% taken on his project, on his different startup that he was doing. And so, you see the passion, you see as well that there's nothing like it into what, the type of fulfillment that it gives you. You see also the pain. As when you're a partner of an entrepreneur, there's also very frustrating moments, because there's going to be weekends there where he's not here, or there's going to be night where he's not around, right? And you don't have the normal life of, this weekend, what are we going to do? Should we go on? No, that doesn't exist, right? And so you're sort of so you're not on the front seat, you're not even in the same car, you're just on the side, and you're watching him on the car, and you're like, okay, so I see the good side, and I'm taking mostly all the negative. So you already have that, right? And so I kind of knew what was the entrepreneur life by being, with him. And as I told you, I kind of, I knew that I always wanted to change things, and I always wanted to also, I would say, start something, right? Have an impact, make an impact, right? And so when that problem arises, and when I see the opportunity, I think what happened, there's 2-3 things. The first thing is, obviously, I've been fed for the past 3 years by entrepreneurship, by this man, and so it doesn't scare me anymore. It's okay not to have money.
So it is important to
For
be
sure.
in an environment that kind of debunk the myth and demystify completely.
Because I was not
Yeah.
married to a banker that would have told me, oh my God, you're not going to make money for the next 2 years. No, I was married to someone that was telling me that,
I'll live my entire
it's
life
okay.
figuring out
Exactly.
the next year,
and
next
we'll
month,
see,
right? So yeah.
Exactly. So you're not. So first of all, I was not afraid because I saw that
That's
you
important.
work out.
I mean,
and
fear is very important thing to deal with when you go about to lunch.
100%.
Yeah,
And to me, that was a factor that was removed. I was excited. They were probably, obviously I didn't go in it thinking it's gonna work out, but I kind of weighted the pros and the cons, and I was like, he's learned so much, so by the time I've seen him not only recruiting, launching new ventures, changing, pivoting, I was seeing him, learning so much, growing so much, and I didn't feel that I was doing the same, at my work anymore, right? There was a sort of, what am I learning that is new, and how am I challenging myself? And so to me, when this problem arose and when I was like, oh my God, this is a good solution, I thought, first of all, this type of opportunity doesn't happen that many times, right? Because the market that we're going after is huge. When you're convinced about something, there's sort of like, I knew that if I was not going after that, then I would never start anything, because that was the perfect problem to tackle.
Absolutely.
That was the perfect solution. So to me, that was sort of like, it's on the plate, it's on the plate for you. You need to seize it, right? Second, I thought, if it doesn't work out, the worst case scenario is that in 2 to 3 years, I go back to a bank, I go back to someone else, and I'm like, okay, I've been an entrepreneur for the past 3 years. I work out.
No regrets.
Yeah, exactly. I've learned so much more things, and I'll definitely have a better job than I had, and I'll be in a better position than I am today. And even if I stayed, the next 3 years in my job, I'm just going to progress slowly. It's going to speed track me. It's like doing an MBA. That's the worst case scenario, is that you go back on the market 3 years later.
It's like on the field MBA.
Exactly.
And so this,
But wait, I mean, she's gentle now because she's saying just and the pain. But 2 seconds on this.
On the pain, yeah.
Right, like at the end of Jolly Click, the professional network I built, I was in debt, man. Like, I was severely in debt. I had no money. Not only that, I owed money. She helped me out, right? So it's like, and it's a catastrophic situation. Like, not only you burn investor money, because you have you have the opportunity and the power to just convince people into a direction. That direction is not fruitful, and you end up with a lot of disappointments.
like that syndrome, or you were pitching like crazy, the investors,
Yeah, exactly.
100%. That's the case for all the founders. And then at the end of the day, you ruined it.
Yeah.
You were on the wrong track, plus personal debt.
Yeah,
And like the world collapsed.
Yeah, and people, employees, it gets fucked up. You're like,
Yeah.
you get your business cards back, and people say you're toxic and everything. Like, it's tough, right? It's fucking tough, because you can very easily say to yourself that you're a piece of shit, very easily.
Yeah.
And then the conflicts, because like, it's like you're under tension, you're under pressure very often when things go bad, when things go sour, when you're not making revenue, when just you live on expectation and promise and courage, and just you learn this and you learn that. Cool, that you take that, sure, but you're putting something on the table, right? You're sacrificing stuff. You are literally. It's something very weird. I heard, like, what's his name, the guy from YC. He did a nice live talk.
Siebel, Michael Siebel.
Yeah, he was like, guys, entrepreneurship is not a career path. it's a pathology. Like careful, you know. Like, and I agree with him. Like it's not for everyone, and it definitely it's an everything or nothing, right? It's
And
an
I
all-in
would
kind of
add that on the background you had kids.
No, so at that time, so he had one kid, and I actually, to share a personal note, because especially if some women are watching this, I think it had been a year that we were trying to have a kid before I actually resigned, and I think also one of the reasons why I was staying at this particular job was like, you know, have that family project. You need to stay there. You know, it's going to be easy. There's going to be this 3 to 6 month maternity leave. Things will be comfortable, and I think also because personally and professionally, I was not happy. Things were not moving as well on the personal side, and so the day actually I resigned, or I think my last day at the bank, or 3 days after my last day at the bank, I became pregnant of our first kid
It's a
together.
very interesting aspect because most of my friends, and I include myself in my old me, you would tend to think that when you have to build a family project, entrepreneurship is not the good thing.
Yeah.
While at the end of the day, you have to pursue your happiness.
Exactly.
If you feel comfortable in the new world and you know that you have to figure it out after, this is where you set yourself in the right comfortable environment, mentally, psychologically.
You're unlocked.
And
Yeah.
you unlocked it.
Yeah.
And I think I would like to know, like, what advice would you give to women entrepreneurs or men entrepreneurs that are thinking that it's a trade-off between I pursue my dream in entrepreneurship or I build a family? Honestly, I'm part of this crew where I'm like, oh, should I secure my seat financially, build a family, have kids, or should I take more risks and like pursue my dreams and figure it out after?
I think there's no easy answer to that. But first of all, there's no right timing. So if you keep on, putting your life on hold because whether it's your personal or your professional life, actually, but putting it on hold because you think that you need more money or you need a better job, it's just never gonna work. You're gonna miss out on opportunities. To me, it shouldn't be thought like that, right? So there's no right timing. So when you want to do something, when you want to have something, go at it. And exactly. So that's the first thing. Now, something that it is important to say is that especially when you are a couple working, 70 hours a week, you do need support, right? Mm-hmm. And so whether it's financial support because you don't have the family support, mm-hmm. or whether you have the family support and you don't really need the financial mm-hmm. support, each situation is different. Well, figure it out, but you do need the support. And I think it would be too naive to say, hey guys, it's super easy, do it and all that. No, at the end of the day, having a kid when you're starting a company, it's starting enough. It's like as if you were starting, really two ventures at the same time. So if you don't have the support system, whether once again you pay for it or you get it from your family, you can't do it.
And more importantly, let's not forget something. I recall a friend of mine, a successful founder now, very successful founder. He said, I went to my wife and I told her I'm really sick of taking the subway every day. I'm really sick of the big four companies. I want to start my own company. And if she didn't look me in the eyes face to face, told me, okay, you know what? Don't worry. Financially, I'll support you. Build your startup, right? Go pursue your dreams. Unlock this situation. You're unhappy, makes our couple unhappy. And more importantly, it's not because our couple isn't happy, it's because the couple is here to be 1 + 1 equal at least 2, even 3, 4, 5. And I would like to know how your couple, would you have potentially pursued entrepreneurship or like jumped that fast in entrepreneurship if you were not a couple helping each other out, or was it more of like, it's a bonus? So
I started by myself. And Chris joined 6 months later. I don't know that I would be there today if he hadn't joined. I'm really not sure about that because at the end of the day, I think we were extremely strong as a team, right? Mm-hmm. We brought to each other for this specific problem qualities that we didn't have. He had this, he had been starting company, so he knew how to go from 0 to 1. I had no idea how to do it. I had a very institutional background, and I had the industry expertise that he did not have. So I think for us it was. Don't get me wrong. It was not a no-brainer. It was difficult to take this decision for many reasons, because we knew once again that we were going to be fragile financially. He was not going to. I didn't have the stable job anymore, and he was not going to get it. But what I knew, and I think this is also why we did it when we did it, we were so convinced about what we had in our hands that we knew that together we would be stronger. We would get there, and I knew that I had, 6 months after he joined, or 3 months after he joined, I was going to have a baby. And so that support at that time, at the time that we were doing the pre-seed, was so important. And by myself, I would have lost 4 months, because I would not have been able to have, the same strength every day, right? So I think also being a couple starting this company made it possible for us not to put aside our family dreams just because we were able to support each other, right?
You don't go back home fighting against a wife or a husband that is in an entire different universe.
Completely.
You're together into it.
Completely.
Yeah.
But so I would have dropped entrepreneurship again. I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I remember that in December when we got the money from the business angels.
Yeah.
It was I told her, in a week, if we don't get the money,
Yeah,
I'm joining. I'm taking a job. I'm literally taking a job. I had like small summer jobs when I was a kid, etc. So I know what it is to have a boss over me. It's not that, but still, this was going to be my first job. So I had applied to like start scale-ups here in Paris. I was in process actually in parallel of raising funds.
Yeah.
And I remember because there was I have an email exchange with Simon Daula from Batch.
Okay.
Right? It's funny because it's like I'm applying as CMO, and then we get the money, and I'm like, oh, I cannot come to the interview I just raised, and he's like, oh, cool, can I invest?
This is the sexiest email of rejection in the world. It's like, sorry, man, I can't come for the interview, not because I got a better offer. I just raised money from my startup. And it's cool. Kudos to this founder, because I want to invest, man.
Yeah. Well, he's cool. He's good. That's the truth. I wouldn't be in entrepreneurship if her idea and she took the time to understand.
And honestly, I want to discuss about kind of sensitive topic for me, because I want to debunk something. Men sometimes they think like, I want to be my own man. I want to do everything by myself. And like, just have the humbleness to be like, okay, I'm gonna find a job. I'm gonna pay for my bills at some point, right? But I meet a wife. I meet a partner. She doesn't have to be like an entrepreneur. She can be like being a couple is sometimes seeing life like a stable stream, a vision, a project, right? And so I also meet many entrepreneurs who are like, oh, I cannot pursue this project because I need to secure everything for myself. And I think this 2022, it's important to push this message at a worldwide scale to men and women by saying, your partner in life should not just be about, hey, we live life together, we go on holidays and we have fun and we meet family. We have a project. If we manage to build it together, fine. If you build it, then I'm here to support you. There's nothing wrong about it. There's no ego into it, because you are gonna find a job anyway, cash in, come back, do your thing again. And you're like, okay, this is an opportunity, let's seize it. So would love to have your opinion as a man with regard to these founders where they don't leverage the support system. I'm really talking about the support system. It's there behind, beneath their eyes, and they don't leverage on it.
Yeah. I mean, I've leveraged it as fuck.
Yeah.
So I
what can you say to just help them kind of kill this limiting belief, right? Which is at the moment we're talking limiting many people from moving forward. I know it's a hard question.
I know, because again, because it's and I'm that is the guiding thought. This is the fundamental assumption, because entrepreneurship, and I'm not talking. There are several degrees and levels to entrepreneurship. If you open a bakery, it's not the same thing as if you want to pursue and create
Revolutionizing industry.
Aerospace and create SpaceX. It's not the same thing. So you have different degrees, but if you are pursuing worldwide global ambitions, etc., leveraging technology, having great impact on the world, etc. If you are into that kind of goals, that size, you necessarily there is a thing inside your brain. There is something. That's the assumption. There is something that is abnormal. Normal in the sense that there's a norm in humanity, in population, and sociologically, anthropologically, there's something abnormal. Okay, so if that's the assumption, then it's difficult for an abnormal person to send out advice to people, right? Because it's like, it might be the wrong advice.
Yeah,
you might not
we don't come
right?
from the same universe, right?
So like everyone has her needs. Now I understand what you're saying, and I think there is to some degree some kind of you need if you want to go that direction and leverage support, you need to talk to your friends, family, etc., like if they were investors, but they're not investing money to get return, or maybe they do, but they should be investing because they love you, because they want to see you grow, etc., etc., etc. So and one should not abuse that, right? Because it can turn into some kind of abuse.
Yeah.
But if you succeed, then the family succeeds, because you're growing. Mommy, daddy, girlfriend, whatever is happy to see you grow.
Yeah.
You're happy. I'm happy. You're
It's
happy,
super interesting.
etc., etc.
Comes down to being radically transparent in communication.
Yeah.
And it's also a true life test.
Yeah.
This you can know, right? So actions speak louder than words. And then you see, right? So we're going to move to more of the business aspect, talk about fundraising, talk about getting your first client.
Can I just add something?
Yeah,
just
sure.
2 seconds, just because we're here to debunk ideas.
Yeah, of course. Go
It's
ahead.
not just that we started working and everything was beautiful and we're like, oh my God, we were meant for that and this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
The first 6-8 months were extremely tough, and it's normal, right? And I think it's important to talk about it. They were tough because basically when you are in a couple but you don't work together, you have your professional life to kind of be the person you want to be outside of your personal life. You can, you have two personas. You have your personal persona and you have your professional persona. And suddenly you become completely naked to the person you love and to the person that is the most important, or which view on you is the most important in the world, right? And so suddenly also, because it's entrepreneur, there's no lying, there's no hiding, there's no, you're transparent, right? So and so the first 6-8 months for us, there was a lot of adjustments because we needed to trust each other. So first of all, I think we both have personalities where we like being in control, and I think that's also why we're also in the position we are. But so we like being in control, and so it was very hard to know where to trust each other professionally, and it was hard to also, at least for me, because you also disappoint. Once again, I was not being an investment banker. I was doing a job that I had never done before. It was super hard for me to disappoint and to know how to be like, it's okay, it's my co-founder. I'll still be able to, I haven't disappoint my husband, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And so I think those first 8 months were a bit, were tough to learn to
say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's many fights, many disappointments, but always the resilience to find a solution.
And is it that difference than with, any other co-founder? I'm not sure. Just the fact that you don't have that other bubble where you can, basically forget about all that. It's there all the time and it's hard to hide from it. But I guess it's the same thing with another co-founder. Then once we kind of passed that, and Chris, you'll tell us what you think, but to me, it became amazing because this is exactly what you were saying.
Model.
Yeah, and also because then there's no frustration. We're 24 hours completely dedicated to defense. There's no, we're happy to spend a weekend at WeWork. Like, people are happy to go to Bordeaux for a weekend. We're super happy when our kids are with their grandparents and we can come to WeWork and work together for 2 days. So we really, we're on the same page, and that's really great.
And I'm gonna come back after to this topic, which is building a startup while being a couple.
Okay.
And you spoke about, like even psychological hacks and to put kind of some sort of a Chinese wall. But let's deep dive a little bit into the business.
Of course.
Here, what I'm interested in is really how you started. So it's like few weeks after you jumped in, okay, the early days. First, entrepreneurs don't know what to prioritize. Am I going to look for the client, the technology expert, like the co-founder, CTO? Am I going to build the product? How am I going to look for the supplier? How I'm gonna work with all this? Am I big enough to convince one of those? So how was it at the end? Were you lost, or did you have kind of a plan that you were always reshuffling on the go?
Maybe I start and you take over, because this before he joins and after he joined, because obviously he had already done the mistakes that I had never done, and he had more experience. But so I started by recruiting the wrong co-founders, and I think that's the kind of the beginner's mistake and the one that everyone does. So I started working for 6 months with 2 very smart guys, but that were not startup material, that were kind of always waiting for me to raise before actually dedicated time and energy and building something. And so that was not wasted time, because we did talk about the solution. There were work done on the product, but nothing concrete, nothing that could help me.
Willingness to take the risk was important for you in the co-founder, I would say.
Yeah,
Identity, right?
Willingness to take the risk, but also, so I needed to have those technical co-founders that we talk about, and I was super happy when I found one, and I found one that really knew the subject.
How did you manage to convince and find? Where did you find him?
So I started with just very naively. I put an announcement on a job offer on AngelList, and I interviewed 80 people.
80 people.
Yeah, but you'll see, it's not that much. That was just the first round. That's the first round, and it's not that much. And so, and it was not the right one, and it was not. And I think I didn't have the right criteria. So to me, I was so happy he knew what I was talking about. He knew the subject, and he knew the pain point, that I was like, okay, it's good. We're meant to be together and start this company together. But I hadn't done the due diligence.
How come you had 80 applications while you're just a new company, not funded, no press, no media, no credibility?
Crypto?
I
would say crypto a lot. Honestly, 2020, you were launching a crypto project. Tech people were all looking at, I want to transition in. This was something quite sexy, because custody solutions.
Still today.
Still today. But in 2020, it was really starting to be sexy, because some of our competitors today had started raising their Series A. So the subject was starting being more important.
So the fit was there. So we can say that you identified that you had to find the technical co-founder.
Yeah.
That was the first
Obviously. Raising on my own was not possible. And I couldn't build a product. So I needed someone technical to build a product, right? And so to build a demo. So first raising technical, but so I did. So once again, I think recruited the wrong people, because I didn't know exactly before going into this recruitment what I needed. And so that's something where you really need to reflect. And you need to reflect not only for the company that you're going to build, but for also how you're going to raise and what you're going to raise. Because at the end of the day, that first co-founding team is your only asset. And that's what you're raising on, especially on deep tech. You're not going to be able to work your way or to bootstrap, right? You need to invest capital to have a product, right?
So this is where fundraising came as a must-have.
Exactly.
Cannot do anything without the proper resources.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to realize that fundraising from investors was a must-have? I mean, must go through that bridge, no matter what.
To me, it was very, very, very early on because I know that we were building once again a product that needed work on science, that needed at least we need to have a team of 3 to 4 engineers to start building something and have something that is commercial, that you can commercialize. I spent 3-4 months to think about what is the smallest version of that product that I can get out there so I can start seeing the traction. But there were no quick fix, right?
Yeah.
There was no quick and dirty, let's put something out there, or at least not with the people I had. So very early on, I knew that this was a capital-intensive project and that money needed to be raised, for sure.
Okay. I recall you said 0 to 1 was more of your field.
Yeah,
Even like
that's his field,
when
for
we were talking about fundraising, you went massive. You knew the growth hacking techniques and like softwares and so what was your role at the early days and what did you do basically? What triggered?
Yes, but there is a couple of things before that she did. She entered the Credit Agricole's incubator, right? So she comes from Credit Agricole, the bank. She pitches her new project called at the time XKey. Defense was XKey, and she gets into the incubator. So that's one first mark of trust, right? She gets. Then funny thing with Purple, I tried to get into Station F in 2020 summer, and she tries to get into Station F as well. She gets in, I don't, right? So that's funny as well, because so she does get in with what was it, Antoine, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a second mark of trust. And those are important mark of trust. We'll go back to that later, but they actually are. And so with her CV, with all the logos, etc., looks super good. So we're advancing. But it is true, like when those two guys that you were working with, I was intimidated by all the science, the words, the compliance, the regulatory complexity, etc. So I was analyzing this, observing all this quietly and timidly during the summer, and but I knew that they sucked. I don't know how you just know when someone is good or not, and basically I just went with implementing best practices. So first it was like documenting things. Tableizing the doing some user research and crunching the data from reporting the calls, putting them into tables, upvoting shit.
You started to create a system.
Yeah, exactly. You just input the best practices, and when you do that, and when you start putting in those disciplinary, rigorous processes in place that are best practices, you see those two guys kind of break and fall behind and say I'm leaving, which was basically the point.
Yeah, it's good. And like you match the job.
Stress testing and break. That's good. You weren't meant to be there, so that's happened. And then we were like, we need a technical co-founder. So I was on LinkedIn sending a lot of emails, and there's this guy that says like, interesting, yes, but I'm in a consulting company right now, and why don't we partner up? So we talked to them, and they have this like blockchain group with a couple of engineers, young engineers, junior engineers, but they seem interesting, and so we go basically, let's try something out. You take X% of the company, 5, 10, 15%, we're discussing this, and you become some kind of pacemaker, some kind of technical team for us. But it's another company, right? And we tried that out in October, just a month going out, and we desperately need a technical co-founder to move on, since the two guys went away, left, and so we tried. One of the things we did was to pitch investors we knew, but also we contacted a guy, Corentin Orsini. He created something called Super Capital. I'm talking about him because he did great after, and now they have a group of 1,500 business angels in Paris. I'd say they're the number one kind of business angel regroupment network in France. And he had this nice newsletter that I was following as a consumer, almost of it. Just highlighting a startup every month, right? And was like, I had him as a friend on Facebook. I was like, what about, pushing us? And he was interested. I was like, oh, this is like Ledger, but dematerialized and cloud thing. And okay, so got it. Let's push it. He pushed it. We had a quick interview. And yes, so two things, right? I'm going to end the discussion about this company that was about to take 10%. So we had calls with VCs, with angel investments, etc. On the side, we pushed that newsletter. It came out in October. With the discussion about the discussions with the seed stage investors, VCs, etc., they quickly just told us, okay, interesting, but they were trying to like, okay, but can't you, the technical team, acquire them, or can't you like merge, or can't you become employees of them, etc. So it's starting to be a bit like, whoa, and finally to realize 30 days later that this idea sucks, because you need to have skin in the game.
This is
you
your
can't
asset,
have
yeah.
another company that has another agenda, another, etc., etc. So that was that became a
It can work for a non-deep tech company, or for people that are not building technological asset for
but highly ambitious, highly achieving startups. So you need stake in the game. You need to have 100 people, 200%. That didn't make sense. So we lost time in that too, etc. Killed the deal. They got super angry. We said fuck off, and it was like over. Okay, so then what happened? I got pissed off. So what happened is that I basically screened 15,000 profiles on LinkedIn, and it took me 45 days.
This is the thing is we see corporate entrepreneurs, they come, and when I tell them, look, you have to go massive. It's a numbers game. You have to hit the ground, confront the market.
I was shocked in the beginning.
Yeah, and that's also where the complementary in the skill set, in the belief, it's not more of like he knows how to use the software. It's more like he tried so much before that for him it's standard. It's normal to go knock at every door, right?
And when you corporate fed, you're like, no, you need to like know people that can introduce you to people, and you're all about those warm intros. But no, the numbers game is
and like when you come from the corporate, you think like, what's my contact list?
Exactly.
Two, I need to go sniper about the contacts.
Yeah.
And then once you finish using all the contact list and second degree intros, you're completely depressed. And you're like, oh, you intellectualize. So 15,000 people on LinkedIn, 45 days.
Yeah, so you get pissed off because, well, she's CEO, so I'm listening to her, right? So like the warm intros, etc. Okay, and it doesn't work. Like, and it's like getting muddy and fucked. Like, and then so 15,000 profiles, and it's literally every day from 9 in the morning to midnight and maybe 2 in the morning. You're like, copy pasting Excel, copy pasting LinkedIn, Excel, copy pasting Excel, checking, screening, no, and your eyes go mad. You're like a machine, and you're like every day you do that, and you know what you're looking for, right? So using bots and technology, I send out automatic messages, and you fuck up. You send like bots go like sending 5 messages.
Dear first name.
Dear first name.
Yeah, exactly. Dear first name. You send 5 messages. So you have all that shitty experience, but
it's important to say it because it's part of the drill. It's part of the journey.
Of course.
Like some people are like, oh my God, I sent 100 messages to people with their first name, or like I wrote to the wrong people. When you hit 15,000 profiles,
So
for sure
what?
some will land at someone that has nothing to do with crypto, but it's part of the game.
Yeah, and people get angry at you, and you have important people that are like, why are you spamming me, etc. You must not take that personally, right? Like it's like,
because you built a system.
Right.
When you build a system, the system does it for you.
Absolutely.
You're just one inside of 15,000 people, so move on.
Yeah, like you're in my ocean, man. I'm looking for my fish. Sorry to fish around.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So it's about being blameless, not like apologetic.
That's so
all the time.
important. That's so important.
Clarisse, you've witnessed that. Do you agree that the mindset, the limiting beliefs, are like a big, if not the biggest part of the whole journey? Because it's not about knowing how to master that software, doing those slides, or like selling, but it's like you can spend a year or two working on a project because you just thought that you couldn't do this, right? Which is like the shotgun approach or like going by the numbers. What's your point?
No,
on
but
this?
it's 100%. So as I told you, when he started like that, I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, like what are gonna people think? It's not personal. You're not going to be able to attract the right people, etc. I was completely wrong. For the recruitment of our CTO, but then after we did the same thing for the raise of the pre-seed, and it was the same thing. And guess what? On I don't know how many.
I wanted to quickly talk about that because it's important. We have like max 10, 15 minutes left. So the fundraising approach, you're like, okay, I'm not gonna wait for my grandma to call her cousin who works in Wall Street to introduce me. I don't know who. I'm gonna go by the numbers, right? There are business angels out there. There must be a bunch of people that will understand or be passionate by what we're building. So you went massive again with your pre-seed. Because like some founders, it's like a Stanford met a NYU, they went into an incubator, they did demo day, got lucky after 3 pitches, and people tend to think that this is fundraising. Fundraising is still a big marathon, right?
And so we had the same technique, which was outreaching to 3,500, 4,000 business angels that had invested in fintech, cyber, or crypto. And even if actually, because Chris is right, we got our first side of pre-seed via Corentin Arsigny, actually, because he had, a good qualified actually business
like
angel base.
Like 100K?
300K.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah, with like big
325K.
tickets or like small?
So
Three tickets.
Yeah,
Three
three tickets.
Yeah, it's quite sizable tickets.
Yeah. But what was amazing is that what we had created at the time, I think we had around 7% of people that had opened the email that we had sent. So on 4,000, it's not nothing, it's quite significant. So you have around 300 people that have been interested, know of you, read your deck, shared the deck, forwarded it to VCs and all that.
Numbers are like 1.52%. Yeah.
Exactly. So 7% was really good. And so we had started creating that sort of like a network of investors. And what we did right after was creating a newsletter. So when we had our CTO, when we had the first milestone, every month newsletter.
So you warm them up.
Yeah.
Then you create scarcity.
Exactly. And
There was a data room, right? There was a data room.
Yeah.
We filmed each other. COVID kicked in after, so you needed to be extra transparent for people to trust you. So it was like you film yourself, you answer to questions so that they see your face. You put the financials. She's great with financials.
Yeah.
We had the master deck, the intro deck. We had everything inside.
But again, let's like make it clear. It's like people you've never met, know from no.
But so what we had done there, and I think I didn't realize to what extent it had been so important, is that we had prepared the seed round. So first part of the pre-seed was done, but by gathering all those pre-seed investors into a newsletter, having them shared with also VCs, we had created a name around XG and then after defense. And so we had preparing for seed rounds, which we started in July.
So that's the thing is like when you start a fundraising, you're already preparing the next one.
Exactly.
And by going, by having this structured approach, it was ready for VCs because VCs, they're going to due diligence what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And they're going to look within the closest what you've done.
Don't think that it's not because you haven't raised with those guys at this moment that things are done.
We know that FOMO plays a key role here.
Yeah,
fear of
exactly.
missing out. Like I've seen like some seed rounds where the VC a month before would say never, no, come back in 6 months, and a month after a big VC invests and like I want in again. Yeah. So it's more of a like subtle art than science.
Every day.
But here is like important to mention that it's better to go confront the market, be on the field, do mistakes. Like don't be as afraid if you have like threatening emails. Where did you get my email? Where did you get this? You're an entrepreneur, right? There's always a part of risk out of this, right? Yeah. And there is growth hacking softwares, growth hacking techniques. There is also, product hunt. I always go on product hunt, and I try to be a beta user of some of the latest softwares that can make you earn a lot of time. So
totally. No, I mean, it's unapologetic. Move forward, believe in yourself, and like you need to listen to feedback, of course, etc., classics. But
And that's the
like-
biggest lesson I learned the first year. To
Yeah.
me, that's the biggest lesson. I learned.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Like, we've had important people, fights, friction, etc. And those same important people, their LPs, etc., they ended up investing in us. So it's like you don't think that also if you have a friction with someone, that's gonna turn. There's no one important enough on earth, no one to really ruin your image, your appreciation,
Kill your
etc.
deal.
No, exactly.
Like it's only what you do that can ruin you. Like it's
Yeah.
no one has that power. So people forget. You
Yeah.
have so much to do.
Absolutely.
So a week later, you're into something else.
Yeah.
So it's like move on.
No, absolutely. And quick one. I know that you were at some point convincing the technical co-founder to come away, not having the money to pay his salary
Yeah.
and raising at the same time. So just a quick between brackets in here. How did you manage to attract a CTO that can be hired for 150K, 200K easy a year? You haven't raised at the same time, so you had to juggle.
Yeah.
play
No, but
that chess game.
so among the 15,000 profiles I was screening, I was looking for specific people, right, that had experience in crypto custody, finance, cryptography, security, very specific people. And the guy we hired is a monster, right? He's our CTO, David. He has 20 years of experience in software engineering. He started his career at Société Générale, then worked for I know the right order perfectly well, but like Deutsche Bank, ING, Citi, 4 big banks. Managed to work for Nokia and Truephone, two big telcos at the same time.
Sold the company to Ubisoft.
Yeah,
to
3
Sony.
startups, exited all 3, sold.
How
them.
did you secure such an amazing profile? Again, were you at the
So
right time, the
basically,
right,
like
the
you
right
send,
sector?
so you send a message where you say directly the salary you want to pay, right? So
And
I'm
the
saying
equity.
here- and the
And
equity,
equity,
like
and equity.
150K, and he's answering. So I got a lot of answers, a lot of no's, but among the yeses, his one was one.
Okay.
But his
It was
was
not a
more
yes.
like
Yeah.
his was more like.
Double it
Okay,
and I'll answer.
interesting. If you double that number, I'm gonna listen to you.
And how
And I said, well, okay, let's say I double it.
And we couldn't,
And
because
we
that
couldn't.
was all our secret.
So let's say, can we talk? And
Yeah.
we did
We wanted to
finally
talk, yeah.
That's also the resilience. Is like I enter by a door where let's say I double it, then
Yeah.
let's walk it out. How did it end? Was it like
He went on. We went on
It went
went
to
back
150,
to-
but we had it a bit
to
of
100.
equity.
Okay. No, that's important because people are like, no, you're not matching my offer. It's done.
But from his version, it was like I answered that because there's so many people recruited out there that I want to meet. So I want to see if you're serious or not.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's his way to kind of put the barrier.
But the lesson I learned from what you say, guys, is that don't burn the bridge from the beginning. Not with a VC, not with a big guy, big important person in the corporate, not with a co-founder, not with anyone. And don't say necessarily, oh, I can't bring your offer. So it's like, I'm working on the fundraising. And as a founder, you have to give a different face. Like you can cry at night, or you have to smile in the morning with whoever you work with, right? So
Definitely.
before we leave this interview, and this episode is very important for me to learn to just quickly dig on that side of the couple. Is you have kids, you just gave birth 2 weeks ago to Amos. You have like your family, right? How do you organize yourself? How do you manage first psychological pressure? You accumulate pressure when you're founders, and then at night you go back home and you're a couple. How do you manage between kids, founders, and you have any organizational hacks to share with us?
So you need to be extremely organized. So first of all, you need to have a support. You need to, once again, whether it's a nanny, whether it's grandparents, that needs to be in place. And you need to be extremely organized. So for instance, in our home, Chris mostly takes care of the morning where he drops at least when it was only one kid, we'll see how we're going to do with both now. But Pearl, I would drop Pearl at creche. And for me, in my calendar, there's a golden hour and a half, which is from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Every day it's crossed out. And that's the moment where I take my hour and a half off. I get out of work, go pick up the kid, stay with her so I can really, enjoy that hour. And I'm dedicated to her. Nothing is going to crash this
Which
time.
one is the hour with the kids?
It's 7 p.m. to 8:30.
Okay.
7 to 8:30 p.m. You cannot get a call on
90
my
minutes.
calendar.
90
it's
minutes.
90 minutes.
My
Yes,
90 minutes with my
exactly.
kids every day.
Exactly, every
Okay.
day. And then after, because we had to work quite a bit, we managed to have usually on the weekend. There's one day where we have grandparents that take the kid at least for 5 hours, so we can put back 5 hours of work that are straight. And mostly we decided to do like that because at the beginning when we had the whole weekend with the kid, we were always working a bit, always with the kid a bit, and never really cutting, and that was really bad for the kid, for us, for everyone. And so we managed, we say, okay, we would rather have one more day of week, but have a Sunday or Saturday that is completely free and that is really, dedicated to unload pressure and be with the family. And so today this is how it's working. Having another kid, it's definitely another organization. We'll see how we gonna do. But the idea is to same thing. We partner up on the business side, is to partner up on the family as well, and try to share tasks.
Yeah, but so like this is important, right? Like people are like, I'm gonna raise. For first time entrepreneurs are like, money they get, they look at it as some kind of gift. It's not a gift. It's a tool. It's working tool, right? It's an instrument. So if you have those constraints, kids, etc., and your happiness and your life balance is important for the stability of the business because you're a founder, you need to take into account those costs when you say, I want to raise 6 million.
Of course.
Because if you say, I want to raise 6 million, you have nothing to pay the nanny.
Of course.
You can ask for 6 million and 100K.
Of course.
It doesn't really change for the investors. If that gives you the peace of mind to work continuously for a good period of time every day and move forward the business, that's what the investor wants.
Absolutely.
So you need to kind of also embed into the
Price
way
that
you,
in,
you know, the expectations.
It's this kind of survivor syndrome that founders have, where they think investor money should be like 200% just on the product.
Yeah.
As a founder, you need to decide, I need X as a salary per month. I need a decent flat. I need a decent food,
Right.
and I need to at least go disconnect at least a week per year
Right.
somewhere, right? And I see so many founders like they outwork themselves. They are in this, living in a bad environment, not really putting. And it's also important to debunk that myth. Fundraising is in your balance sheet. It's an asset. This is equity. This goes to the product. This goes to the marketing. This goes to the team. This goes to the salary. And also it reflects in your team performance. When you recruit people and you don't pay them very well, you have the team doing burnouts. You lose a lot of knowledge and so on.
And I mean, there's a limit to all this, right? Because you don't want to end up like Adam Newman taking helicopters and being like,
not like the Wolf of Wall Street for sure.
Right. There's a limit to that.
But
you need to understand that like VCs, when they raise money from LPs,
Yeah.
they include
the management
They
fee.
include like salary, this and that. And I would go as far as to say, if you are pursuing an opportunity and presenting that as an opportunity and are going to be the carried horse that's going to carry the thing, then you need to even make money out of that.
Yeah.
You need to even have a good salary that allows you to spare some money on the side,
Yeah.
not get out of a year or two, even if it fails, without having won something. Because you tried something, right? Like that's a...
I mean, you're in Paris. You need like €1,000 just to have a studio central, right? 1,500 minimum if you go far from your workplace. You need like another 1,000 and something. You have a kid, you need 1,000 and more. And these are aspects that are very important, and I think it's important to be like, okay, I don't die with my startup.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It's a knockout, but I don't stay on the
No, if
ground.
you can bootstrap and make revenue, that's even better, right?
And another aspect to consider as well is, late founders, early founders. If I co-found a company right after school, I don't have the
for
same
Needs.
constraints,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So one last thing is we always take advice for, the entrepreneur. So if you had to say one thing, just one thing, you, Clarice, and you, Chris, to the entrepreneurs that are starting, right? And I want it to be a practical advice that they can just practice starting tomorrow, right? Like right after this episode, what would that be?
I'm going to go back to something that we said today, just because to me that was the biggest finding, and I think the most important thing I've learned for the first year is it's a numbers game, right? And so if you are everything you do, whether it's commercial, investor, recruitments, you need to be massive in the outreach project that you're going to do, because that's how you're going to raise the statistics of something happening, right? And this is, for a lot of people that have not been entrepreneurs, this is completely counterintuitive, as we've been discussing. And to me, this is one of the most important advice that you gave me when we started. As long as being prepared and taking yourself seriously. I'm going to just highlight taking yourself seriously, because men do that quite well, women don't do, and so usually when they start, it's harder it's harder to convince an investor, it's harder to convince a client, because they always feel not legitimate in what they do, right? And so to me, it was also about, I had seen that guy, the day he has an idea, it's like the business has been created for the past 10 years. And it was just an idea that was in his head 2 days ago, but it sounds like it's been around. Women tend to not be able to do like that. So take yourself seriously day one. You can do it. And so I think this is something that, once again, I realized that when we started,
All right, so entrepreneurship is a big numbers game. Don't be afraid. Don't limit yourself. Go hunt the numbers.
Yeah.
You, Chris?
Because you have a high probability to fail your startup, just mathematically, kind of the mind trick I find the most powerful tool to be is to see everything as an assumption. Like, you're assuming, you're believing stuff, you don't know them. You assume that those are the customers, that this tool is solving a pain. Those are just assumptions that you need to verify. So if you start the mind trick of just seeing everything as an assumption, you will hopefully get scared that the belief is not true and that that has no practice, no real anchorage in reality. And so the speed at which the thoroughness and the speed at which you verify if something is true or not, that is going to not make you succeed, not necessarily make you succeed, but at least it will allow you to, and this is a classic, right? Fail faster. And if you fail faster, if you fail on an idea a week, it's not that dangerous. If you fail with an idea during 2 years, that is starting to get dangerous for a simple reason. We have 60, 70, 80, 90 years to live on Earth. Time is counted. That's
a reality.
More than money. That's more than money. Time is
more
than money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So be scarce with time. See everything as a trap. See everything as be skeptical as fuck with everything. People say this is interesting, that is interesting. Whoa. Check it out.
Yeah.
Test it, and test your way through everything. Don't assume stuff and just blindly get into stuff.
That's very, very, very golden advice. It's like, assume everything is the hypothesis that you need to beat unless it becomes true.
Exactly.
And the faster you do it, the more you accumulate and you compound the knowledge to make it at some point.
Yeah.
And you will definitely make. I personally intimately believe that, at some point you hammer, it's gonna get in, right? Mm-hmm. And it's gonna work. So thank you very much, Chris, Clarice. We've seen with this incredible founders, couple. I call them the power couple. How it is to start a company. You don't have to come from a technical background to go build a deep tech. You don't have to be limited by the fear of building a family or by your personal constraint. Just do it, go with the flow, and then figure it out. You also have to leverage on your support system, on your beloved ones as well. It's as Chris said, it's a test, but it's also they're investing in you in a way that they love you as a founder. Then in the early days of a business, it's a numbers game. You have to go massive. You have to learn through iteration. So remember that This is the advice of Clarice, and what Chris is saying is whatever people tell you, even the experts, it doesn't mean it's the exact reality. It doesn't mean that that's the solution. You have to question yourself constantly, and you always have to go prove yourself wrong. All right. Thank you very much, and see you on another episode. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bon.